Great, it connected. Awesome. You know what? I am not going to... Excuse me. Not going to play a game today. I'm going to do this instead. Let's see, where's it at? Not that. Why? Stop, don't go to that one. See, how loud is that? I don't know how loud that is. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit though. About half volume maybe? See how loud that is? Just some background ambient kind of stuff. And let's see. Nope, not that one. Did I put it over here? Yeah, there it is. Let's see. Let's see here. Add. Would it be a... I don't know, it would be a video game capture. Let's see. Go to try game, maybe? Come over here. Let's see. No, I don't see. Alright, so it's not going to be that. Let's see, add. Let's just add a source here, maybe. Don't want to display capture. Media source, maybe? No, it's not media source I want. Let's see. Let me go back to my music and put it on repeat. There we go. Let's see here. Let's see. Source. Window capture? Not that one. We want that one. Yeah, there we go. Well, no, not quite. Let's see, we want not quite what we want. I mean, I guess we do display capture or something. Let's see, source, add. I guess window capture, and we'll window capture this. Let's see, how's that look? That probably looks really bad. What if we expand it a little bit here? Oh, I want myself. There we go. There we go. Zoom in again. Boom. Let's edit this. Hazmat. Let's see. Excuse me. I mean, not how it's... Ah, okay. There we go. Studying for a hazmat endorsement. And I'll give out, if anyone shows up and they want a spin on the picker wheel. Let's see here. Let's get the picker wheel out. Let's see here. Go over to the picker wheel. Anybody wants to spin on the picker wheel? Yeah, come on, win a game, win a game. Probably only going to be here about an hour or so probably won't be anybody show up. If, what is that, Eliza is a game you might want to own, well, it's in there on the wheel. Just let me know if you want to spin in the live chat, and we'll spin the wheel, see what game I'll get your Steam key for. These are all old Humble Bundle Steam keys from a few years ago. I haven't used them. They should still be good as far as I'm aware, even though they are a few years old. But anyway, let's get back to Section 9 of the Commercial Driver's License Manual, Modernized Testing System, Hazardous Materials. This section covers the intent of the regulations, bulk tank loading, unloading, and marking, driver responsibilities, driving and parking rules, communication rules, emergencies, loading and unloading. Hazardous materials are products that pose a risk to health, safety, and property during transportation. The term often is shortened to hazmat, which you may see on road signs, or to HM in government regulations. Hazardous materials include explosives, various types of gas, solids, flammable, and combustible liquids, and other materials. Because of the risks involved in the potential consequences these risks impose, all levels of government regulate the handling of hazardous materials. The Hazardous Materials Regulations, HMR, is found in Part 171 to 180 of Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations. The common reference for these regulations is 49 CFR 171-180. Hazardous material table in the regulations contain a list of these items. However, this list is not all-inclusive. Whether or not a material is considered hazardous is based on its characteristics and the shipper's decision on whether or not the material meets a definition of a hazardous material in the regulations. The regulations require vehicles transporting certain types or quantities of hazardous materials to display diamond-shaped, square-on-point warning signs called placards. This section is designed to assist you in understanding your role and responsibilities in hauling hazardous materials. Due to the consistently changing nature of government regulations, it is impossible to guarantee absolute accuracy of the materials in this section. An up-to-date copy of the complete regulations is essential for you to have. Included in these regulations is a complete glossary of terms. You must have a commercial driver's license, a CDL, with a hazardous materials endorsement before you can drive any size vehicle that is used to transport hazardous materials as defined in 49 CFR 383.5. You must pass a written test about the regulations and requirements to get this endorsement. Everything you need to know to pass the written test is in this section. However, this is only a beginning. Most drivers need to know much more on the job. You can learn more by reading and understanding the federal and state rules applicable to hazardous materials, as well as attending hazardous materials training courses. Your employer, colleges and universities, and various associations usually offer these courses. You can get copies of the federal regulations, 49 CFR, through your local government printing office, bookstore, and various industry publishers. Union or company offices often have copies of these rules for driver use. Find out where you can get your own copy to use on the job. The regulations require training and testing for all drivers involved in transporting hazardous materials. Your employer or a designated representative is required to provide this training and testing. Hazardous materials employers are required to keep a record of training for each employee as long as the employee is working with hazardous materials, and for 90 days thereafter. The regulations require that hazardous materials employees be trained and tested at least once every 3 years. All drivers must be trained in the security risks of hazardous materials transportation. This training must include how to recognize and respond to possible security threats. The regulations also require that drivers have special training before driving a vehicle transporting certain flammable gas materials on highway routes, controlled quantities, or radioactive materials. In addition, drivers transporting cargo tanks and portable tanks must receive specialized training. Each driver's employer or his or her designated representative must provide such training. Some locations require permits to transport certain explosives or bulk hazardous wastes. States and counties also may require drivers to follow special hazardous materials routes. The federal government may require permits or exemptions for special hazardous materials cargoes such as rocket fuel. Find out about permits, exemptions, and special routes for the places you drive. 9.1. The intent of the regulations. 9.1.1. Contain the material. Transporting hazardous materials can be risky. The regulations are intended to protect you, those around you, and the environment. They tell shippers how to package the materials safely and drivers how to load, transport, and unload the materials. These are called containment rules. 9.1.2 Communicate the risk. To communicate the risk, shippers must warn drivers and others about the material's hazards. The regulations require shippers to put hazard warning labels on packages, provide proper shipping papers, emergency response information, and placards. These steps communicate the hazard to the shipper, the carrier, and the driver. 9.1.3 Assure safe drivers and equipment. In order to get a hazardous materials endorsement on a CDL, you must pass a written test about transporting hazardous materials. To pass the test, you must know how to identify what are hazardous materials, safety load shipments, properly placard your vehicle in accordance with the rules, safely transport shipments, learn the rules and follow them. Following the rules reduces the risk of injury from hazardous materials. Taking shortcuts by breaking rules is unsafe. Non-compliance with regulations can result in fines and jail. Inspect your vehicle before and during each trip. Law enforcement officers may stop and inspect your vehicle. When stopped, they may check your shipping papers, vehicle placards, and the hazardous materials endorsement on your driver's license, and your knowledge of hazardous materials. 9.2 Hazardous materials transportation. Who does what? 9.2.1 The shipper sends products from one place to another by truck, rail, vessel, or airplane. Uses the hazardous materials regulations to determine the product's identification number, proper shipping name, hazard class, packing group, correct packaging, correct label and markings, correct placards. Must package, mark, and label the materials. Prepare shipping papers, provide emergency response information, and supply placards. Certify on the shipping papers that the shipment has been prepared according to the rules, unless you are pulling cargo tanks supplied by you or your employer. 9.2.2 The carrier takes the shipment from the shipper to its destination. Prior to transportation, checks that the shipper correctly described, marked, labeled, and otherwise prepared the shipment for transportation. Refuses improper shipments. 9.2.3 The driver make sure the shipper has identified, marked, and labeled the hazardous materials properly. Refuses leaking packages and shipments. Placards vehicle when loading if required. Safely transports the shipment without delay. Follows all special rules about transporting hazardous materials. Keeps hazardous materials shipping papers and emergency response information in the proper place, reports accidents and incidents involving hazardous materials to the proper government agency when the incident occurs while driver is in physical control of the shipment. 9.3 Communication rules. 9.3.1 Definitions. Some words and phrases have special meanings when talking about hazardous materials. Some of these may differ from meanings you are used to. The words and phrases in this section may be on your test. The meanings of other important words are in the glossary at the end of section 9. A materials hazard class reflects the risks associated with it. There are 9 different hazards. Oh, it continues. There are 9 different hazard classes. The types of materials included in this 9 classes are in figure 1.9. And then we have figure 1.9. We have classes, divisions, names of class or division examples. Class 1 is divided into class 1 division 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6. 1.1 is mass explosion. 1.2 is projection hazard. 1.3 is fire hazard. 1.4 is minor explosion. 1.5 is very insensitive, and 1.6 is extremely insensitive. And then there are examples. So for 1.1, an example would be dynamite. For 1.2, an example would be flares. For 1.3, an example would be display fireworks. 1.4, the example is ammunition. In 1.5, the example is blasting agents. And in 1.6, the example is explosive devices. Class 2 is broken into Class 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. These are Class 2.1. The division is flammable gases. An example of that is propane. Class 2.2 is non-flammable gases. An example of that is helium. Class 2.3, poisonous or toxic gases. Example of that is fluorine and compressed. I don't know, it just says compressed. It must not have compressed something. I don't know. Let's see, Class 3 has no divisions. It's simply Class 3, and it is, the name is flammable liquids. An example of that is gasoline. Class 4 has 3 divisions, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. 4.1 is flammable solids. Imagine the example of that is ammunition, ammonia, ammonium picrate. Picrate? I don't, something like that. 4.2 is spontaneously combustible. These aren't lined up very well. Is that white phosphorus, maybe? Is that the example for that? Or wetted white phosphorus? I'm not sure. And then 4.3 looks like dangerous when wet, and that looks like sodium. Is the example for that. 5 is 2 divisions, 5.1 and 5.2. 5.1 is oxidizers, and this would include an example of ammonium nitrate. 5.2 is organic peroxides. Example of that is methyl, ethyl, ketone, and peroxide. Stuff I've never heard of there. It's a lot of new words here. Class 6 is divided into 2, 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1 looks like the name of the class is poison toxic material, and an example of that is potassium cyanide. 6.2 is infectious substances. An example of that was the anthrax virus. We have Class 7 with no divisions. That's radioactive. An example of that would be uranium. Class 8, no divisions. The class is corrosives, and an example of that is battery fluid. Class 9, no subdivisions. Miscellaneous, let's call the name of the class is miscellaneous hazardous materials. An example of that is polychlorinated biphenyls, BCH or PCB. I don't know. That's the thing. Class none. All right. No subdivisions. The name of the class ORM-D, or other regulated materials domestic. Food flavorings and medicines are the examples for that. And then there's another class that doesn't have a class or a division, but the name of the class is combustible liquids, and an example is fuel oil. All right, so we just went over figure 9.1. All shipping papers describe the hazardous materials being transported. Shipping orders, bills of lading, and manifests are all shipping papers. Figure 9.6 shows an example shipping paper. After an accident or hazardous materials spill or leak, you may be injured and unable to communicate the hazards of the materials you are transporting. Firefighters and police can prevent or reduce the amount of damage or injury at the scene if they know what hazardous materials are being carried. Your life and the lives of others may depend on quickly locating the hazardous materials shipping papers. For that reason, the rules require shippers to describe hazardous materials correctly and include an emergency response telephone number on shipping papers. Carriers and drivers to quickly identify hazardous materials shipping papers or keep them on top of their shipping papers, and keep the required emergency response information with the shipping papers. Drivers to keep hazardous materials shipping papers in a pouch on the driver's door or in clear view within immediate reach while the seat belt is fastened while driving, or on the driver's seat when out of the vehicle. 9.3.2 Package labels. Shippers put diamond-shaped hazard warnings on labels. Shippers put diamond-shaped hazard warning labels on most hazardous materials packages. These labels inform others of the hazards. If the diamond label won't fit on the package, shippers may put the label on a tag securely attached to the package. For example, compressed gas cylinders that will not hold a label will have tags or decals. Labels look like the examples in figure 9.2. And here's example 9.2. Has a little skull and crossbone guy with a inhalation hazard on one placard. Another skull and crossbow with PG 3. Another poison with the skull and crossbone. Infectious substance. These are all Division 6 or Category 6 or whatever it was called. Class 6, that's what it was. Class 6. Infectious substance is another one. Then we have 2 Class 5s, an oxidizer, and an organic peroxide placards. And that's what those placards look like. Example of hazmat labels, figure 9.2, or these are labels, hazmat labels. Right, down to the next page. Okay, these are labels that go on particular items, like the packages or the cylinders. And then we got list of regulated products, 9.3.3. Placards. Placards are used to warn others of hazardous materials. Placards are signs put on the outside of a vehicle and on bulk packages which identify the hazard class of the cargo. A placarded vehicle must have at least 4 identical placards. They are put on the front, rear, and both sides of the vehicle. See Figure 9.3. Placards must be readable from all 4 directions. They are at least 250 millimeters or 9.84 inches square on point in a diamond shape. Cargo tanks and other bulk packaging display the identification number of their contents on the placards or orange panels or white square on point displays that are the same size as placards. Example of hazmat placards in Figure 9.3. This must be 9.3. Got a bunch of placards here. Blasting agents, oxygen, flammable solid, organic peroxide, poison, radioactive, corrosive, and dangerous. Identification numbers are a 4-digit code used by first responders to identify hazardous materials. An identification number may be used to identify more than one chemical. The letters NA or UN will precede the identification number. The United States Department of Transportation's Energy Response Guidebook, the ERG, lists the chemicals and the identification numbers assigned to them. There are 3 main lists used by shippers, carriers, and drivers when trying to identify hazardous materials. Before transporting a material, look for its name on 3 lists. Some materials are on all lists, others on only one. Always check the following lists. Section 172.101, the Hazardous Materials Table. Appendix A to Section 172.101, the list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Appendix B to Section 172.101, the list of marine pollutants. The Hazardous Materials Table, Figure 9.4, shows part of the Hazardous Materials Table. Column 1 tells which shipping modes, the entry effects, and other information concerning the shipping description. The next 5 columns show each material's shipping name, hazard class or division identification number, packaging group, and required labels. 6 different symbols may appear in column 1 of the table. The plus sign shows the proper shipping name, hazard class, and packaging group to use, even if the material doesn't meet the hazard class definition. The letter A means the hazardous material described in column 2 is subject to the HMR only when offered or intended for transport by air, unless it is a hazardous substance or hazardous waste. The letter W means the hazardous material described in column 2 is subject to the HMR only when offered or intended for transportation by water, unless it is a hazardous substance, hazardous waste, or marine pollutant. The letter D means the proper shipping name is appropriate for describing materials for domestic transportation, but may not be proper for international transportation. The letter I identifies a proper shipping name that is used to describe materials in international transportation. A different shipping name may be used when only domestic transportation is involved. The letter G means the hazardous material described in column 2 is a generic shipping name. A generic shipping name must be accompanied by a technical name on the shipping paper. A technical name is a specific chemical that makes the product hazardous. Column 2 lists the proper shipping names, and descriptions of regulated materials. Entries are in alphabetical order, so you can more quickly find the right entry. The table shows proper shipping names in regular type. The shipping paper must show proper shipping names. Names shown in italics are not proper shipping names. Alright, and here we have figure 9.4. 49 CFR 172.101 hazardous materials table. Alright, I'm not going to go over this table. And then, we have symbols in section A, hazardous materials, description, and proper shipping name. I guess that's section 2. Hazardous class or division in section 3. Identification numbers in section 4. PG in section 5. Label codes in section 6. Special provisions in section 7. Exceptions, section 8A. Non-bulk, section 8B. And bulk, section 8C. Alright. Appendix A 294 CFR 172.101 list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Okay, so this is an example of that. We have several hazardous materials and then the reportable quantities in pounds and kilos. So, looks like most are, we got some here that are 100 pounds, 45.4 kilos, a couple that must be reported at 10 pounds, or 4.54 kilos. Got one here, this phosphoric acid is 5,000 pounds. So I guess anything under 5,000 pounds, you doesn't have to be placarded as hazardous or something? I think that's what that means. Alright. That's figure 9.5. Column 3. Alright, this is going over the figure 9.5. Column 3 shows a material's hazard class or division, or the entry forbidden. Never transport a forbidden material. Placard hazardous material shipments based on the quantity and hazard class. You can decide which placards to use if you know these three things. Materials hazard class, amount being shipped, amount of hazardous materials of all classes on your vehicle. Column 4 lists the identification number for each proper shipping name. Identification numbers are preceded by the letters UN, NA, or ID. The letters NA are associated with proper shipping names that are only used within the United States, and to add and to and from Canada. The letters ID are associated with proper shipping names recognized by the International Civil Aviation Organization, the IACO. Technical instructions for transportation by air. The identification number must appear on the shipping paper as part of the shipping description and also appear on the package. It also must appear on cargo tanks and other bulk packaging. Police and firefighters use this number to quickly identify the hazardous materials. Column 5 shows the packing group in Roman numeral assigned to a material. Column 6 shows the hazard warning labels shippers must put on packages of hazardous materials. Some products require use of more than one label due to multiple hazards being present. Column 7 lists the additional special provisions that apply to this material. When there is an entry in this column, you must refer to the federal regulations for specific information. The numbers 1 through 6 in this column mean the hazardous material is a poison inhalation hazard, PIH. PIH materials have special requirements for shipping papers, marking, and placards. Column 8 is a 3-part column showing the section numbers covering the packaging requirements for each hazardous material. Note, columns 9 and 10 do not apply to transportation by highway. Appendix A to 49 CFR 172.101, the list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. The DOT and the EPA want to know about spills of hazardous substances. They are named in the list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. See Figure 9.5. Column 2 of the list shows each product's reportable quantity, the RQ. When these materials are being transported in a reportable quantity or greater in one package, the shipper displays the letters RQ on the shipping paper and package. The letters RQ may appear before or after the basic description. You or your employer must report any spill of these materials, which occur in a reportable quantity. If the words inhalation hazard appear on the shipping paper or package, the rules require display of the poisonous inhalation hazard or poisonous gas placards as appropriate. These placards must be used in addition to other placards which may be required by the product's hazard class. Always display the hazard class placards on the poison inhalation hazard placard, even for small amounts. Appendix B 249 CFR 172.101, List of marine pollutants. Appendix B is a listing of chemicals that are toxic to marine life. For highway transportation, this list is only used for chemicals in a container with a capacity of 119 gallons or more, without a placard or label as specified by the HMR. Any bulk packages of marine pollutant must display the marine pollutant marking, white triangle with a fish and an X through the fish. This marking is not a placard. It is not a placard, must also be displayed on the outside of the vehicle. In addition, a notation must be made on the shipping papers near the description of the material, marine pollutants. 9.3.4 The shipping paper. The shipping paper shown in Figure 9.6 describes a shipment. A shipping paper for hazardous materials must include page numbers of the shipping paper, page numbers if the shipping paper has more than one page. The first page must tell the total number of pages, for example, page 1 of 4. A proper shipping description of each hazardous material, a proper shipping description for each hazardous material. A shipper's classification signed by the shipper saying they prepared the shipment according to the regulations. And then there's figure 9.6, which is example shipping paper. Alright, 9.3.5, the item description. If a shipping paper describes both hazardous and non-hazardous materials, the hazardous materials must be entered first, highlighted in a contrasting color, or identified by an X placed before the shipping description, ID number, shipping name, hazard class, packing group, and a column captioned HM. The letters QR may be used instead of X if a reportable quantity needs to be identified. The basic description of hazardous materials includes the identification number, proper shipping name, hazard class or division, and the packing group. I don't know why I keep saying packaging. And the packing group, if any in that order. The packing group is displayed in Roman numerals and may be preceded by PG. Identification number, shipping name, and hazard class must not be abbreviated unless specifically authorized in the hazardous materials regulations. The description must also show the total quantity and unit of measure, the number and type of packages, example 6 drums, the letters RQ if a reportable quantity. If the letters RQ appear, the name of the hazardous material, hazardous substance. If the letters RQ appear, the name of the hazardous substance if not included in the shipping name. Okay, so if there's an RQ, that means it also needs the name of the hazardous substance. Okay. For all materials with the letter G, generic, in column 1, the technical name of the hazardous material. Shipping papers also must list an emergency response telephone number unless accepted. The emergency response telephone number is the responsibility of the shipper. It can be used by emergency responders to obtain information about any hazardous materials involved in a spill or fire. The telephone number must be the number of the person offering the hazardous material for transportation, if the shipper offer is the emergency response information ERI provider, or the number of an agency or organization capable of and accepting responsibility for providing the detailed information required by paragraph A2 of this section. The person who is registered with the ERI provider must be identified by name or contact number or other unique identifier assigned by the ERI provider on the shipping papers. Shippers also must provide emergency response information to the motor carrier for each hazardous material being shipped. The emergency response information must be able to be used away from the motor vehicle and must provide information on how to safely handle incidents involving the material. At a minimum, it must include the following information: the basic description and technical name, immediate hazards to health, risks of fire or explosion, immediate precautions to be taken in the event of an accident or incident, immediate methods for handling fires, initial methods for handling spills or leaks in the absence of fires, and preliminary first aid measures. Such information can be on the shipping paper or some other document that includes the basic description and technical name of the hazardous material. Or it may be a guidance book such as the Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG. Motor carriers may assist shippers by keeping an ERG on each vehicle carrying hazardous materials. The driver must provide the emergency response information to any federal, state, or local authority responding to a hazardous materials incident or investigating one. Total quantity and number and type of packages must appear before or after the basic description. The packaging type and the unit of measurement may be abbreviated. For example, 10 CTNS period UN 1263, paint, 3, PG Roman numeral 2, 500 pounds. The shipper of hazardous waste must put the word waste before the proper shipping name of the material on the shipping paper. Hazardous waste manifest. For example, UN 1090, waste acetone, 3, PG Roman numeral 2. A non-hazardous material may not be described by using a hazard class or an identification number. Shippers must keep a copy of shipping papers or an electronic image for a period of 2 years, 3 years for hazardous waste, after material is accepted by the initial carrier. If one provides a carrier service only and is not the originator of the shipment, a carrier is required to keep a copy of the shipping paper or an electronic image for a period of 1 year. Important note: to view complete regulatory requirements of the transportation of hazardous materials, one should refer to the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Parts 171 to 185. 9.3.6 Shippers Certification. When the shipper packages hazardous materials, he/she certifies that the package has been prepared according to the rules. The signed shipper's certification appears on the original shipping paper. The only exceptions are when a shipper is a private carrier transporting their own product and when the package is provided by the carrier, for example, a cargo tank. Unless a package is clearly unsafe or does not comply with the HMR, you may accept the shipper's certification concerning proper packaging. Some carriers have additional rules about transporting hazardous materials. Follow your employer's rules when accepting shipments. 9.3.7 Package markings and labels. Shippers print required markings directly on the package. An attached label or tag. An important package marking is the name of the hazardous material. It is the same name as the one on the shipping paper. The requirements for marking vary by package size and material being transported. When required, the shipper will put the following on the package: the name and address of shipper or consignee, the hazardous materials shipping name and identification number, the labels required. It is a good idea to compare the shipping papers to the markings and labels. Always make sure that the shipper shows the correct basic description on the shipping paper and verifies that the proper labels are shown on the packages. If you are not familiar with the material, ask the shipper to contact your office. If rules require it, The shipper will put RQ, marine pollutant, biohazard, hot, or inhalation hazard on the package. Packages with liquid containers inside will also have package orientation markings, with the arrow pointing to the correct upward direction. The labels used always reflect the hazard class of the product. If a package needs more than one label, the label must be close together near the proper shipping name. 9.3.8 Recognizing hazardous materials. Learn to recognize shipments of hazardous materials. To find out if the shipment includes hazardous materials, look at the shipping paper. Does it have an entry with a proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number? A highlighted entry, or one with an X or RQ in the hazardous materials column? Other clues suggesting hazardous materials. What business is the shipper in? Paint dealer, chemical supplier, scientific supply house, pest control or agricultural shipper, explosives, munitions, or fireworks dealer? Are there tanks with diamond labels or placards on the premises? What type of package is being shipped? Cylinders and drums are often used for hazardous material shipments. Is a hazard class label, proper shipping name, or identification number on the package? Are there any handling precautions? 9.3.9 Hazardous Waste Manifest. When transporting hazardous wastes, you must sign by hand and carry a uniform hazardous waste manifest. The name and EPA regulation number of the shipper, carrier's end destination must appear on the manifest. Shippers must prepare, date, and sign by hand the manifest. Treat the manifest as a shipping paper when transporting the waste. Only give the waste shipment to another registered carrier or disposal treatment facility. Each carrier transporting the shipment must sign by hand the manifest. After you deliver the shipment, keep your copy of the manifest. Each copy must have all needed signatures and dates, including those of the person to whom you delivered the waste. Placarding. Attach the appropriate placards to the vehicle before you drive it. You are only allowed to move an improperly placarded vehicle during an emergency in order to protect life or property. Placards must appear on both sides and both ends of the vehicle. Each placard must be easily seen from the direction it faces, placed so the words and numbers are level and read from left to right, at least 3 inches away from any other markings, kept clear of attachments or devices such as ladders, doors, and tarpaulins, kept clean and undamaged so that the color, format, and message are easily seen. Be affixed to a background of contrasting color. The use of "drive safely" or other slogans is prohibited. The front placard may be on the front of the tractor or the front of the trailer. To decide which placards to use, you need to know the hazard class of the materials, the amount of hazardous materials shipped, the total weight of all classes of hazardous materials in your vehicle. 9.3.11 Placard Tables. There are 2 placard tables, Table 1 and Table 2. Table 1 materials must be placarded whenever any amount is transported. See Figure 9.7. Except for bulk packaging, The hazard classes in Table 2 need placards only if the total amount transported is 1,001 pounds or more, including the package. Add the amounts from all shipping papers for all the Table 2 products you have on board. See Figure 9.8. And then we have Figure 9.7 here. You may use dangerous placards instead of separate placards for each Table 2 hazard class when you have 1,001 pounds or more of 2 or more Table 2 hazard classes requiring different placards, and you have not loaded 2,205 pounds or more of any Table 2 hazard class material at any one place. You must use the specific placard for this material. The dangerous placard is an option, but not a requirement. You can also placard for the materials. If the words inhalation hazard are on the shipping paper or package, you must display poison gas or poison inhalation placards in addition to any other placards needed by the product hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception does not apply to these materials. Materials with a secondary hazard of dangerous when wet must display the dangerous when wet placard in addition to any other placards needed by the product's hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception to placarding does not apply to these materials. Then we have Figure 9.8 here. Placards used to identify the primary or secondary hazard class of a material must have the hazard class or division number displayed in the lower corner of the placard. Permanently affixed subsidiary hazard placards without the hazard class number may be used as long as they stay within color specifications. Placards may be displayed for hazardous materials, even if not required, as long as the placard identifies the hazard of the material being transported. Bulk packaging is a single container with a capacity greater than 119 gallons. A bulk package and a vehicle transporting a bulk package must be placarded, even if it only has the residue of a hazardous material. Certain bulk packages only have to be placarded if on the two opposite sides, or may display labels. All other bulk packages must be placarded on all four sides. Alright, sections 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, test your knowledge. Not going to do that. Alright, so yeah, I got to here to this first test your knowledge. I'm going to end for now. Been doing this for about an hour, been reading this for about an hour, and my reading is very poor, I can tell you that. Messes up a whole lot of stuff, but that's it for now. I'm gonna start getting ready for work here shortly, so I don't want to start another long reading thing. Alright. So, we'll just, I guess, stop streaming. See. Let's get rid of that. Alright. Well, no games given out today. We'll bring up the picker one more time. Here at the end, do another picker wheel. Let's see. Go picker wheel. What can be won on the picker wheel? What games are available? Let's see. What game could you win? Smile for me. Smile for me. Alright, that's up there. You could win that game. Alright. Well, I'm done. So, until next time, y'all stay safe.